Forsberg pulls up for three, boom, knocks it down.
Curry from the corner at three, puts it in.
For overtime, makes it Garrett. Right.
Welcome to the MVP cast, back after our post-Eurobasket break. The warm glow achieved by Great Britain's women are smothering the whole of the country, and so hot that some people even daring to play basketball outdoors. That'll never last. Anyway, it's right bang in the middle of the off-season and what goes on then behind the scenes, so that when the revamped BBL Cup tips off on the 20th of September, and that's the competition that opens up the BBL next season, every team thus has a roster on the floor and at least some idea how it's all going to fit together. To find out and to get an idea of the summer from a head coach point of view, our guest is Ben Thomas of Cheshire Phoenix. Welcome to the MVP cast, Ben.
Hi, Mark. Thank you very much for having me.
Thanks for joining us. So your second full season finished back in April. Your first after that amazing BBL Cup win. The follow-up just sneaked into the playoffs. You lost to Leicester in the quarterfinals. So maybe before we look ahead to what you do over the summer, can you give me a sense of maybe what the evaluation process is for you, Mike Burton, the club management, that you all make together once that season finishes?
At the start of the year, we obviously have our goals. Go as far as we can in cup competitions, make the playoffs, all those sort of things. So we have aims at the start of the season, and I think over the last 2 years, there's been more of an emphasis on the playoffs as well, due to the fact that we have the All-Star tournament. Mm-hmm. Obviously, for smaller teams and smaller budget clubs like ourselves, making the playoffs and being in with a chance of really helping our financial situation as well is a huge thing. So for us, like this year we need to make the playoffs. We need to give ourselves the best chance we can in the cup and trophy. But this year, really, we felt like we missed out in the playoffs last year, and we really want to do better. And that was our main goal. So making the playoffs when it got confirmed after the Bristol London City Royals game, that was a huge relief, a huge sense of accomplishment that we'd done what we needed or what we set out to do. And, anything after that was a bonus, and we were going into games without any pressure at all, really.
I remember speaking to you, I think, about the weekend before that. And, obviously at that point, it could have gone either way. It was such a kind of battle right to the wire. Once that's sort of confirmed, and, there's a little bit of money and extra money coming in there, I mean, does it really feel like a lot of pressure went off you just when that Bristol lose? You guys are confirmed in the top 8, and therefore things simplify themselves just a little?
Honestly, I'd love to be able to tell you the sort of emotion that I had. I was sat at home watching the game on the Friday night. We'd played at London City Royals the night before and won a game that really put us in a position to make the playoffs. And it was relief, it was joy, it was, it was just a lot of emotions all at once. Being like, do you know what? That's it. That's the target reached. Yeah, we could have done it a little bit better. We could have won a game here. We could have won a game there. But at the end of the day, when you achieve a goal, it doesn't really matter how you achieve it. It's the fact that you have. So it was a handful of emotions, to be honest. And it was like a weight, a weight being lifted or pressure being lifted off you. It was good.
So then you fast forward a couple of weeks, and of course the old gang depart for the summer. You've kind of got almost a blank sheet of paper again, and you know what your budget is after the club sort of counts all the pennies up and predicts ahead, and relative terms, as you said, Cheshire Phoenix budget pretty small. So how do you then begin that process of putting a new roster together? I guess the process really goes back before the old season's even done.
Yeah, so we obviously are a club with a reputation of, a lot of people use this term, a revolving door. Players come here for a season, they go. We have a revolving door policy ourselves where if someone's not performing, we make changes. Something that I've tried to bring in as a coach, and what I really think is going to work, is the fact that we need continuity. We need continuity throughout the season, but we also need continuity between seasons, because that's when new players coming in are going to buy into a culture that you have already set. Whereas if you get rid of players and you start all over again, and yes, probably financially it's a little bit cheaper to do that because you can get a rookie for a little bit less. But we really wanted to have some continuity. You know, we've had a better season this year in terms of our overall record, and we want to do even better next year. So we knew the sort of guys that we had in our team that have the right attitude, who are buying into the system. And it was a case of, well, we need to speak to them. If we can get those locked down, then we can start thinking about, all right, this is the type of player we need in this position, this is the type of player we need in that position. So that's how it started for me. I knew that I wanted continuity. I knew there were some players within our squad that, liked it here. They wanted to be here, and it was just a case of really growing from them and then moving forward into new recruitment and things like that.
Before we talk about the guys that you've got who left, who stayed, who are coming in, you mentioned culture, and it's become sort of the big buzzword, I guess, of basketball teams, right as far as up with Golden State Warriors, right the way down to the lowest level. As head coach, how do you, I guess, define the culture that you have or want to have at Cheshire?
It comes from me. I know the situation that we're in. I know that we don't have the biggest budget. I know that we don't have the best facilities. We don't have our own arena. There's a lot of things against us, but what it is, like, my mentality is winning is everything. So that's my mentality. That's the culture that I want to get. Whatever it takes to win, we have to be prepared as a team to do it. Whatever it takes for us to get better, we as a team have to do it. I don't really have like a blame culture where I want to blame one person. I believe that mistakes are made as a team. We're a team sport. If you want to start pointing out things individually, or you want to start gaining individual recognition, go and play an individual sport, because this is a team sport, and we win together as a team, we lose together as a team. We're going to get better together as a team. So that, to me, is my culture. A winning mentality, but we're doing it together. We're getting better together.
So the four guys that represent the continuity, you've got Lewis Sayers, Momo Latinovic, Dizzy Lufidejo, Jalen Hayes. What do they bring to the party, or what will they bring to the party? You guys show up first day of preseason. What do those four guys bring that makes your job easier?
I mean, individually, I can say it straight away. Like, Lewis Sayers is one of the best players that I've ever coached in my. It's a short career, but I've been around professional players, since 2013, 2014, when I first got involved with the professional team at the Phoenix. He is one of the hardest working guys. Like, he's not a type of guy that's going to shout at his teammates or really get his teammates. There's a point where he's going to be like, come on, guys, we need to start doing stuff. But he just leads by example. He trains hard. He's one of the hardest working guys you meet. He looks after his body. Like, he's great off the court. So that was like, Lewis was like one of our main targets because of how he carries himself as a professional athlete. Going over to Dizzy, I feel like he's got the mentality of the underdog that we're looking for here. He's been overlooked a few times in his career. He's missed out on opportunities. He's a blue-collar, hard-working guy that I know is going to put everything out there, and he is all about the team. He's not somebody that wants to gain, individual accomplishments. He's all about the team. He wants to get better as an individual, of course, but he's all about the team. He's got that mentality that we're looking for. Chilo, the qualities that we see in him are, he's a little bit older. He has more experience. He's played in numerous countries around the world. He has the experience of different things, and that's, that hot old head sort of, listen, guys, this is how it's got to be done, and he's not afraid of saying that as well. Like, he knows that things happen differently in other countries and different leagues, and it might be, you might get looked after a little bit better somewhere or whatever. But he knows the reality of it. He's played there. He's done it. He's got the T-shirt. And he's just like a real sort of cool head. And he's a very likable player between coaches and teammates. So he sort of bridges that gap really, really well. And Jalen Hayes, just a very, very good teammate. Every single player on the team likes him. He's great. He's got a great attitude. His talent is undeniable. Like, he's so good. One of the best touches in the BBL around the basket is left-hand hook shot. If it is more or less unstoppable at times, and then he can stretch the floor as well with a great shot. So yeah, it's a case of he's just a great teammate, and that's what all four guys have in common, is that they're great teammates.
So the second group you bring in, Michael Ochiroba, I hope I'm pronouncing that even vaguely correctly.
Ochirobia.
We'll have that right by the time commentary starts this season. Kareem William, Jody Campbell. So I mean, you can't say they're all inexperienced, but a group that I guess will fit in a rotation very well. When you sort of plan that group of your recruitment, what do you look for?
So Michael Chirobia, I've actually known him for about 10, 11 years now. We played together at the academy in Gran Canaria. We were housemates together, and I've followed his career from Division 1 NCAA. All the way through, he's been playing in France, Italy. He had a spell at Surrey in 2016, 2017 as well. He's a great guy. He's a great teammate. Anybody that's played with him before is going to tell you the same thing. Like, he's a great guy. One thing with Michael, though, is that we brought in and what we sort of identified from our teams like last year is our age. Like, we had quite a young overall age last year, whereas Michael is the same age as Chilo. He's like 29, 30. That's important to have those guys with, a little bit more mature, that older head on the shoulders, that, can say to the younger guys, listen, this is what we've got to do. It's about building that culture again. And Michael knows that he's coming in and he's going to have a great role in our team on the floor, but he's also going to be a great part of the team as well in terms of, really sort of helping everyone buy into the same sort of culture and heading in the same direction. Moving on to Jode Campbell, again, just a young, hungry basketball player who we've had nothing but great references from guys at Leicester Riders, the academy coaches, Russell, the general manager there. He's gave us really good things to say about him. He's only young. He's probably coming in to play a smaller role than a lot of the guys, but he's hungry. He wants to learn. He wants to be here. I just think he's a great addition to our team to help us with some depth. Kareem William, again, another young guy coming out of college. I feel like he has that sort of blue collar underdog mentality. He went to a really, really good prep school in the States, played with the likes of Ben Simmons, D'Angelo Russell, who are obviously now big NBA players. Didn't get his Division 1 scholarship offer, ended up going to Division 2. But he's coming here with that mentality that, it doesn't matter that I've been overlooked before. I'm ready to work. I'm ready to go. Again, had really good references of him as a player and as a person. So, yeah, just really looking forward to seeing his hard work pay off.
The two headline guys, I guess we could call them that, I think, to be fair to them, that you've brought in. Two rookies. You've got Parker Jackson Cartwright, who coming out of Arizona University, Wildcats, big college program, winning Pac-12 titles. And then you bring in Montel McRae, who played for Buffalo, a college program that did really well. I mean, I remember seeing him at the Hall of Fame Classic in Belfast. They go on to win the MAC Conference, the tournament, met the NCAAs. And those are guys who, just by their pedigree, will have options. So where do you go? What's the sales process like for you in terms of getting two guys out to consider coming to Ellesmere Port, of all the places in the world, and then I guess closing the deal to get them to sign up and commit to coming there?
Do you not think Ellesmere Port's a very nice place?
I'm sure it's delightful, but a very fine shopping mall. But maybe not the first place that they thought about going to play professionally.
Yeah, no, and to be honest, I'm just going to go back to the mentality again of Parker Jackson Cartwright, unbelievable college, one of the best colleges in the States in terms of, the 4 years that he was there, winning the Pac-12 and the Pac-12 tournament, 3 years out of 4, both those. I mean, that's huge. Teams just don't do that. He's that college is up there with some of the best colleges that players have ever come to from this league. But let's go back to, all right, he's been on a team with NBA players. DeAndre Ayton, who went number 1 overall and the 2018 pick, was on the same starting 5 as him. But, Parker had a great role on that team, and he's been overlooked before because of, all right, he might be a little bit smaller than what the point guard is nowadays. He's not 6 foot or 5'11" anymore. It's 6'3", 6'4", and he's got that mentality of, do you know what? Okay, I'm not prepared to be overlooked anymore. I'm prepared to go to work, and that's what we've said to him. You can come here, all right, and you're going to buy into our mentality. You're going to buy into our team sort of culture. Everyone's here together, and we're going to do well. And he's got a chance to showcase himself. And if that means that, next year he's going to move on to bigger and better things, or next year, he loves it here, he loves Ellesmere Port and, the shops, and he wants to come back, then great. But he's coming with that same mentality that he's ready to work, he's ready to go. And that was how we sort of got Parker on board, to be honest.
And then the same, I guess, as Montel, same sort of offer that you can make.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's the same thing over and over again with these guys that we get here. Montel went to a community college where it was a really good school, a junior college, that was a really good level. He played with some really good players that all went to really high major Division One schools. He goes to a very, very good, probably high mid-major school in Buffalo, and in his junior year there, first season with them, plays decent amount of minutes as a first-time player there and all that sort of stuff. But then the second year, the coach sits down with him and says, okay, for the better of the team, this is what we want you to do. We want you to start, okay? You're not going to play major minutes as a starter, but you're going to start the game because you've got a teammate here who really struggles with foul trouble in Nick Perkins. And he's a great player. He's going to go on to bigger and better things or whatever, overlooking another guy like Montel. He bought into it because he's a team guy. And, I've had a great reference from Montel because an ex-teammate of mine, Tom Fox, who I played with at Manchester Magic and in the youth programs there, he is now the director of basketball at Buffalo. And he's gave me the exact sort of reference that I wanted to hear from a player that I'm recruiting. This guy's coming to work hard. This guy's got a great team attitude. This guy is an unbelievable athlete. And then, to be able to compare him to David Kadiri, who came from the same college, playing the same amount of minutes to him, David Kadiri had a great year at Manchester the season before last. It was just everything that we heard about him, everything that we watched on tape. He's a guy with the same mentality as the rest of our players. He's been overlooked, but he's a great teammate. And that's what we liked about Montel as well.
And how far back do you go in the planning of this? Are you a guy that will sit and have guys identified, poring over the kind of synergy stats and the tape, etc.? Are you relying on agents coming along and going, okay, here's a guy that might fall in your budget? What's the premise of how you can go about getting players like that?
People like Michael Ocherobia, like I said to you, I follow his career. I speak to him throughout the season, not just this year, but in previous seasons. They're guys that I've got earmarked year round. People that I know. There's people in the league, in the BBL that's just gone past that. I'm watching this player day in, day out play for another team, and then during the summer I'll reach out to him or his agent, and we'll go from there. But in terms of the Americans, there are obviously some colleges that you, as a fan, that you'll sit and watch, or because Tom Fox is my ex-teammate, I'll pay more attention to Buffalo's results than others. So in terms of Buffalo and Montel, we've had our sort of eyes on him for a long time just because of how athletic he is, how long he is, really suits the sort of style of play that I really like. But then Parker Jackson Cartwright is just one of these guys that, you don't really concentrate on, because is it really achievable that someone like Parker's stature, caliber, is he going to be looking at the BBL as an option? So his was more of, agent fired me his profile over, really interested in him. You watch his film, you watch him on Synergy, you have a look at his deficiencies, what he's really good at, and then you then start speaking to people, getting references, speak to the player, see what his mentality is like, and you go from there. So it's really like a mixture of everything, like what you said. Some guys you have earmarked and you look at throughout the season. Some guys it's just a case of their profile lands on your desk and you have a look at it and you really like it. So yeah, it's definitely a mixture.
And then you wait and see what CJ Geddes wants and whether you can afford him.
No, I mean, to be honest, like CJ came back last season, and we would. I honestly don't believe we would have made playoffs without making the two changes. Jalen Hayes and CJ Geddes turned our season around. We had a really bad spell between late October into November where we just couldn't win a game. Just things weren't going right, and you know, I spoke to CJ earlier on in the year, and he was convinced that he was happy going to China and stuff like that. And then, you know, the changes made. CJ texted me and he was like, you know, do you still want me to come? I was like, yeah, let's make it happen. But CJ done a great job for us over the past 2 seasons, 100%. You know, he was liked by a lot of our fans. He'd done a great job in the community. But now I feel like he really wants to test it for himself. Like, and I spoke to him a couple of weeks back, and he was telling me that, you know, he's looking at some G League workouts that he has coming up. You know, he's in a great relationship with a girl over in the States called Ashley, and I know that's sort of where he wants to be, or that's what he's telling me he wants to be. So I just, you know, wish him the best, and hopefully, you know, he gets the opportunity that he really wants.
You've had this job on a permanent basis for, you know, since May 2017. Of course, you had that little interim spell the year before when Robbie Pearce stepped aside. But I guess a lot of people, you were sort of new to them when you came into the league. And I wonder, I mean, come back, obviously you went to the academy in Gran Canaria, but I wonder where was the point when you thought, yeah, coaching, that's kind of something I want to pursue here?
So yeah, obviously I went to the academy in Gran Canaria, then came back, went to university at Leeds, which is obviously now, or was Leeds Force when they were in the BBL. Played under Matt Newby over there, and then, to be honest, university just wasn't for me in terms of the studying, the course that I was on. It didn't get my attention as much as it should have. So I decided then to leave university after 18 months and go into working. And as soon as I started working, I knew that I wanted to give back. I knew that I wanted to be a coach. So I've spoken to the Cheshire club at the time. We were called Cheshire Juniors. And I just said, listen, I'd love to coach the under-18 men. I was a national champion at that age group. I really know what it takes to win. And I just want to sort of give back and help out. So that's where it started for me in terms of when I was 21, 22, really started coaching the underage men, under 18s. Done that for 2 seasons, you know, done pretty well. And then my work changed, which meant I had to step away from coaching for a year. I was doing shift work, which just didn't agree at all with being able to volunteer large periods of time to coaching. So I stepped away for a year, and then work again changed. The shifts changed. I was working closer to home and things like that. And at this point, I was training with the Cheshire Phoenix senior team. John Lavery was coaching. It was the 2013-2014 season when we had Victor Moses, Dominic Coleman, and Reggie Middleton. We had a great season that year. We finished 5th. Those 3 Americans averaged like 80 points a game between the 3 of them. It was an unbelievable recruitment that John done. But I was involved then. That's when my first stint with the senior men's team started. You know, I'm not going to say I was on the coaching staff because I wasn't, but I was travelling with the team on the bus to away games. I'd be in the change rooms with them. I was at every training session talking about tactics, talking about, you know, scouting on the other team, what teams are good at, what teams are bad at. And I just loved it. You know, I was young. I was 22, 23 years old at the time. And I just loved being around, you know, the professional athletes. I loved the way we were really focusing into certain things. And that's where it first started for me. And it's just gone on from there. I mean, 2014, 2015, when John Cofino was here, a coach with a lot of experience, obviously coached all around the world. I know he's been on your podcast a couple of times, or more than a couple of times. Again, I wouldn't say I was on the coaching staff with him, but I was around training sessions. I've seen how he put his team together. I've seen how he spoke to the players. I've seen how he managed the players. You know, and it was just furthering my interest, furthering, my ambitions. That okay, this is what I like to do. This is what I want to do. And the year after, when Cafino left and Lavo took over again, Lavo asked me to sort of, all right, let's make this a bit more permanent. Let's be on the bench. Okay, you're not going to be, speaking to the players as a coach day in day out, but you're going to be there to help me. I need an extra set of eyes, and let's start working together. And that's where it started. That's when my first sort of assistant coach role came on, is when in 2015, 2016 with John Lavery. That's when we had like Akeem Ellis, Quincy Taylor, David Aliou, those guys. Again, we had another good year where, we made playoffs. That was the first year in the new arena. So there was a big transition from Chester to Ellesmere Port in terms of our fan base and having to rebuild that. And I think the club's done a great job of completely rebuilding our fan base. We've still got, a loyal supporters that have come with us, but a lot of the fans that we have now in our arena are new fans from Ellesmere Port and the surrounding areas there. So yeah, that's where it started. Got into assistant coach 2015-2016, and then going into 2016-2017, where Colin O'Reilly took over at the start of the season. And as you can see, that those 4 years, we've had a different head coach at the start of the season. We've still got that sort of revolving door policy of players getting cut, things happening off the floor in terms of the management of the club, people coming, people going. And I was involved in all that. I seen that firsthand. I seen how disruptive it was on the floor. I seen how disruptive things off the court were into the team. So obviously Colin's spell here didn't go very well. He's done great everywhere else he's been, and I'm sure if things were different, he'd be a great coach in the BBL. But yeah, there was a lot of player changes. Obviously, then he lost his job at Christmas, and Robbie Pearce was due to take over in January. But there was 2 games before Robbie took over. One was Sheffield away, and one was Glasgow away as well, in between Christmas and New Year. I'm not sure if you were commentating on the game. That it was a BBC game with Dan Routledge, where we won just before overtime. Like, I feel like there was a little controversy where if the game was going to overtime or not. And that was Mike Burton being the coach, and I was assisting him. He was asking me a lot of advice throughout the game, and I spoke my mind. I'd seen the team train and I'd seen the team play, and I knew sort of the players, and I wasn't afraid to sort of say, this is what we need to do with this situation. And I think that Mike Burton, after all the years he'd been involved in the game, was really sort of shocked with how I handled myself in that situation. I think that he'd say the same thing. Like, I was really confident about what I was saying. And some of the things that I said worked. Some of the things that I said, maybe didn't work as well as the others. But we ended up winning the game when nobody thought we were going to. And then it was just a great result for the club. Then we bring in Robbie Pearce, and I think that Mike Burton and him had spoken about, me being an assistant coach. Robbie asked me to be his assistant coach, and that's where it all started again. I was on the bench with Robbie, and then got my opportunity in March when he had to step down for some personal reasons.
I think when Mike, and I presume it's Mike, calls you up and said, "Do you want a shot? This is the crack. Do you want a crack at this?" Was there ever a single second where you thought, "No, I'm not quite ready"?
I can remember it to the day. It was a Friday. I was in work, and we had a double header weekend against Leicester, and it wasn't a permanent job offer. It was just, okay, Ben, Robbie can't be here this weekend. Do you mind stepping over? I can come in and coach if you want, but you've obviously been around the team. You've been helping Robbie for the last 2 months. Do you want the opportunity? And I said to him, yeah, no problem at all. And we went on to lose both games that weekend to Leicester, which obviously I didn't like. I mean, I hate losing more than anything, so I didn't like it, even though we were underdogs and probably no one ever thought that we could win. But still, it was 2 losses. And then I think it was Tuesday, I got another phone call. I was at work. I got another phone call from Mike Burton, and he said, listen, Robbie can't make it back for the rest of the season. He has things that he has to take care of, and it is what it is. We're in this situation. Do you want to take over the rest of the season, or do you want me to do it, or should we look elsewhere? And I think that I maybe paused for 20 seconds just thinking, is this something that I want? And then I just said straight away, yeah, I will make my work fit around basketball for the rest of the season. You know, I spoke to my boss. He was really understanding, and he just gave me the opportunity, and I took it. And you know, in those 11 games that I took over for the rest of the season, we had a record of, it was either 6-5 or 7-4, but our record that season was 11-22 in the league. So we won more league games in that spell that I took over than we had in the previous 6 months that I wasn't there. So I feel like going into the summer that year, I had earned the right to sort of apply for the head coaching job going into the next season. And thankfully, you know, spoke to the board, spoke to Mike Burton, and they gave me the opportunity, and I took it the following season.
I mean, your first season, most people won't know. I mean, you're full time now as a coach, but your first season, you were doing that. You were doing another job. I mean, how tough is that balance in practice to kind of fit those two things together? Because what was your job that year?
I was actually doing something called non-destructive testing, which is quite a niche sort of industry. Basically, it's weld inspection, working on power stations, working on ships. A really active job where you're grafting for a living. Basically, you're doing really hard work most of the time. So yeah, it was a difficult balancing act. I was working, I think it was like 32 hours a week, as well as coaching full time for a professional basketball team, and it was difficult. It was hard mentally in terms of being able to switch off from one job and then going into coaching and preparing properly. But against all the odds or all the negatives about it, I had that mentality that I wanted to work hard, and I wanted to work hard and make it work. It wasn't a case of looking at the negatives and being like, okay, I'm just going to accept that I'm not a full-time coach and I can't compete against these guys. No, it's a case of we just have to work harder, and that's the same message that I had to go to the team as well.
I mean, coach education is something I'm always interested in. I've spoken to NBA guys about it, speaking to guys in BBL in between. I mean, how have you sort of consciously improved your craft? I mean, not even just from the very start, but even over the past couple of years. How do you kind of sit down and go, how do I make myself better at this job, as well as making the players better at their jobs as well?
Yeah, I mean, anybody that asks me this question, I'm going to tell them the truth. Like, I'm not the best coach in the league. I'm not the best coach in the world, but I'm prepared to work at it, and I'm prepared to, take criticism from people as well. I've got a chairman, or a director now, Mike Burton. He stepped down as chairman. He's still involved in the club. He's still going to be involved massively in mentoring me. This is a guy that's worked with some of the best British coaches and best coaches that we've had in the BBL over the years. The likes of Kevin Cadle, who he speaks very highly of on a regular basis. I've got him to sort of lean on, and he'll tell me if I'm doing something wrong. He'll tell me if I'm doing something good. Other people as well. There's another coach that I'm going to give a bit of a shout out to, because this is sort of where my basketball philosophies come from, is a guy called Samit Nurizade, who was assistant to Matt Newby at Leeds Force. He was the head coach at Reading. He was my head coach for 3 years, 2 years at Manchester as an under-18, and then he also coached me over in Gran Canaria as well. He's actually coaching in Azerbaijan now, in his home country, but this is a guy that I speak to regularly on the phone. He gives me great advice. One of the probably one of the best coaches it's not probably. He's the best coach that I've ever played under, seen coach, talked to about basketball. The guy's so knowledgeable, and he's somebody that I sort of really lean on for, advice. He'll give me, just a couple of words sometimes, and it'll really sort of help me make up my mind of what I want to do and that sort of thing. So there's just having guys around you that have a lot more experience than yourself, and being prepared to listen to what they have to say. And sometimes you're not going to take their advice on. Sometimes you're going to, try something else. And sometimes you will take their advice on, and that's it. It's a learning curve about knowing which advice to take, when to go with your gut feelings, and just being prepared to take criticism and learn from things.
I mean, there's been a reformation of sorts of the Basketball Coaches Association this year. And for people who don't know, that it was a reasonably big thing about 15, 20 years ago. Guys like Mark Dunning were involved in it. And it was, I guess, talking shop, but I guess a bit of a sort of, self-help group for everybody that was involved in it, particularly for British coaches. I mean, I don't know how much you've interacted with it, but I mean, how important is it, do you think, for coaches in this country, particularly the Indigenous coaches, to have a kind of group that you can lean upon one another, learn from each other, maybe not have that sort of parochialism that coaches tend to have sometimes where they don't want to share their secrets? I mean, do you think that's important to get coaches to come through in the same way that we've seen the Nick Nurses and Chris Finches come through this country and then advance?
Yeah, I mean, exactly what you just said then. Like, there's a lot of people that don't want to talk about their philosophies or how they deal with certain situations and things like that. And because, that's how we gain advantages during the season on each other. And, it's a game at the end of the day, and you don't really want to show your full hand. But without speaking to other coaches and say, oh, how do you deal with this or how do you deal with that, then you're never going to learn. So whenever we play Leicester Riders, for example, Rob Patnash gives me a lot of time before the game, and we'll speak about certain things, and he'll tell me things that he does with his players, and I'll be like, yeah, do you know what? Like that's a really good idea. And then he'll ask me certain things about me, and he might not listen to what I have to say. He's a very successful coach, but I feel like it's really important to be able to share information and not feel like they're just going to go and use that information and share it elsewhere. It's just it's. I think it's massively important to be able to take constructive criticism from others, but also be prepared to learn from others as well.
I bet Rob tells you more stuff after the game though than he tells you before in terms of what he's up to there.
Sometimes he doesn't want to speak to me after the game either, but that's just part of it as well.
Yeah. Let's look a little bit at the league before we let you go. I mean, a lot of teams still polishing off their rosters, so it's kind of hard to compare at this point in time. But I mean, you touched a bit about making the playoffs and how the importance of that. How do you think the impact is going to be having this BBL Cup at the start of the season, where you get through a group stage for that, league points don't really kick in until November time? Do you think that changes the way that coaches and teams will approach next season?
I think it's really difficult to say right now what the approach is going to be, because it's never happened, or it hasn't happened this way for a long time. I don't feel like there's a lot of coaches in the league that really favour this format, but the way the league is in terms of wanting to better our playoffs series, which I completely agree with, that we needed that 3-game series in the playoffs, but there had to be changes elsewhere to give the lower budget teams still the same amount of home games as what it was before, because it's income at the end of the day. A home gate revenue, sales of merchandise and all that sort of stuff goes to our budgets to be able to put a better team on. If we had the same cup schedule as last year but lost 4 or 5 home games out of the league, we wouldn't be able to have the team on the floor that we've got this year, because our budget would have been a lot less. So in terms of the way the format is, I feel like it's going to be a bit of a learning curve this year. How people approach it, how coaches, what they're going to sort of focus on. Are they going to make sure that their team's fit coming into November, and using September, October as a real sort of extended preseason, give guys a lot of minutes, rotations are high, knowing that 4 teams out of the 6 are going to qualify. So in terms of how people are going to approach it, I really don't know. It's going to be very, very interesting, but this is just the situation that we are with the league wanting to improve, like the playoffs and that sort of thing, that we had to have a longer cup competition as well.
And we should give a plug. You guys have got a pre-season tournament 14th, 15th of September, I believe, which is great to see pre-season tournaments coming back. They kind of disappeared, and now you've got one again.
Yeah, so last season, obviously, we went over to Dublin and played in Temple Oaks One, played against, the team that you support, Belfast Stars, over there. And we just really thought that it was a great way to, listening to the coaches, it's a great way to sort of see a number of teams in pre-season and see the players that they're bringing in. But also, it's great for the team. Players are going to play a lot of minutes over the weekend. It's a little bit of fun. It's not too serious in terms of there's lots of pressure on you, and it's just it was just an idea that we had. We pitched it to a number of BBL teams. Some of them really liked the sound of it, but just had other things booked in on that weekend. And then there's a couple of teams like obviously Glasgow, Manchester, and Temple Oak that were all really excited and like the idea of it as well. So no, we're hoping that it's going to be a great event, and maybe we are going to see returns of it. I know that Glasgow really like the idea of it. Maybe we'll see one up there next year.
Yeah, I always remember there was the Newton Abbey tournament, which was just outside Belfast, which was always great that I was involved in helping to organise for years. And the greatest benefit for it was sponsored by a Taito Crisps. And I always remember coming back from it. There wasn't much money involved in it, but I always came back with a barrel of Taito Crisps, which did me for several months beyond that. So it was always a great one to have when teams came over for it. But bring them back, more the merrier. Last question, and it's kind of a personal one for you. I mean, this will go into your third season, but you're with arguably the smallest club, or one of the smallest clubs in the BBL now. But for you, where does this journey go? Where's the kind of next steps, or what would you like to accomplish from coaching beyond Cheshire Phoenix?
I know the reality of it is that we are in a results-based industry. That is what sport is, and I could have an awful season next year and not be very attractive for any team in the BBL or any league around the world to employ for the following season. I could have a great season. We've recruited a good team. And another BBL team with maybe a bigger budget might be like, okay, well, this guy's done well with a smaller budget in this league. Can we go there? And if that was to happen, maybe that's an option that I'd take. If a team in Europe wanted me, I don't know. My aim is just to go as high and for as long as I can with basketball. You look at the Nick Nurse and Chris Finch going into the NBA. I mean, that's an absolute dream. Is it achievable? I don't know, is the answer. It's one in however many coaches have been in the BBL over the last few years. 1 in 100 coaches have made that sort of path, and he's worked very hard for it. But no, we'll just see. My focus right now is with Cheshire Phoenix. It's the club that I grew up supporting. I'd love to coach here for as long as I can, and if we can become one of the biggest teams in the BBL, that'd be fantastic. We've got the fans to sort of back us up there, and it'd just be a great job. But no, just to sort of stay in this industry as long as I can and coach basketball is an amazing sort of opportunity, and I just like to be able to carry on doing it for as long as possible, to be honest.
Well, if you stick around another 40 years, you can be there as long as Mike Burton.
Yeah, you never know. Well, you never know.
And he's still got the same polo shirts he was wearing in 1970, so it's quite extraordinary.
And the same hats.
And everything else. But yeah, he's a fine chap, and it's good to see he's still involved this season. We wish you all the very best for this season ahead. I guess Ben, it's going to be another one, a battle as always, but not that far away from it. So you enjoy the summer while it's last. But Ben Thomas, thanks for joining us on the MVP cast.
Thanks very much for having me, Mark, and I'd be happy to come on again if you wanted to.
Well, we'll look forward to that. We'll catch up during the season. But that is it from this edition of the MVP cast. You can get all the past editions via your preferred podcast provider or at mvp247.com. That's, of course, where you get all the summertime news. Make sure you follow us on Facebook and Twitter as well. You can hit me up on the latter at Mark Britball. But a new edition coming very soon. But for now, from me, Mark Woods, it's goodbye.